All right, welcome. I want to talk about Elias Petterson. There's a lot going on, a lot of people talking about Elias Petterson and if he's on the move at the trade deadline. I kind of just want to lay it out a bit. Um, Firstly, there's not a whole lot of information as to what those talks between the Vancouver Canucks and Elias Pettersson are. Everything I could find for the most part are rumors. The only factual evidence I could really find um, was pertaining to Petterson not wanting to talk extension throughout the season, which isn't absurd. Like we see players do that quite often. Um, that's not to say there isn't anything out there. I'm certainly not in the Vancouver market. Maybe there have been local reports or something that may not show up on my Googling. So, that being said, Elias Pettersson's contract expires at the end of this year on July 1st. It's expired. He is a restricted free agent. He can sign for another year in Vancouver before he becomes an unrestricted free agent. So I'm not quite understanding where all this hullabaloo is coming from. Sure, the value is high for a number one 25-year-old franchise centerman. That's going to be it. The value is going to be high regardless of when you're looking to trade the guy. You're going to get a haul back regardless of if you trade the guy. So saying his value is really high right now, I mean, it's going to be high regardless. It is what it is. Nonetheless, again, restricted free agent. The Vancouver Canucks have complete control over this player. Pettersson isn't one of those guys that's going to sit out all of next year. Um, and should he sign that one-year contract? Well, guess what? Next year's trade deadline looks good. This is a Vancouver Canucks team that needs to make some type of noise in the playoffs. They need to make a run, and you're not going to do that by trading your number one center because more likely than not, you're not going to get a number one center in return. Most of the buying teams are looking for a number one center, and there are a lot of them, right? I almost wore my Boston Bruins hat because the Bruins need a number one center pretty badly. They have a few number two centers, which are okay, or number three, but they don't have a number one. And there are a lot of teams like that in that scenario. Um, so there's that. What else? Pettersson, in terms of stats, this will be his third year. He's at 29 goals. This will be his third year in a row hitting 30 goals. I'm sure he'll get another goal in the next, 21 games. He might eclipse the 100-point mark, or he'll be close. He had 102 points last year, but that was his only other year, right? Yeah, only other year at or above a point per game was last season. He was 24. He had a great year, scored 39 goals. This year, 61 games played, 29 goals, 46 assists, 75 points, 15 plus or minus, 8 penalty minutes, which is pretty good. Let's see. So, at this point, we don't really know what's going on. There's a lot of speculation, but I'm not quite sure why the emphasis is on trading him this trade deadline when you have control of him for another year, right? You kind of need this player if you want to make a run into the playoffs. He's a key part of your franchise, and the return isn't going to be nearly as substantial. That's not the right way to phrase that. The return isn't going to replace your number one center. And Elias Lindholm stepping up into that number one C position, he can do it, but he's more suited for that number two role. Pettersson is clearly the better player of the two. We see teams win the Stanley Cup or go on runs because they're strong down the center. They have good center depth. And by removing one of your centers, that doesn't necessarily address the problem. I've also seen arguments about not signing Pettersson because they don't really know how much money to allocate for him is holding up the rest of the signings in the books. Right? You need to know what's going on with Pettersson before you can know what's going on with the rest of your team. And I think that's horribly false. That's just bad general managing if that's how you're acting. You should be aware of who you want to sign, what your plan is for the future, right? You want to be aware of how much guys are worth, what range are you looking to sign guys in. Like, you have Pettersson, you're probably going to sign him between $11.5 million and, I don't know, $13.5 million, for example, right? That's your range. Obviously, you want it to be on the lower end of that range, but you want to budget for a signing in that range. right? So you can account for guys like Philip Hronik, who has an expiring contract, guys like Dakota Joshua, who's having a really strong year on that third line, right? Unrestricted free agent at the end of this year. So you need to start getting your ducks in a row, regardless of if Pettersson signed or not. I think that's a terrible excuse to put the blame on Pettersson for potentially a general manager who isn't particularly doing their job. And I forget who the general manager is. Is it Rutherford in Vancouver? Usually you don't get to the general manager position in the NHL if you're not already planning for the future, accounting for your books. This isn't a normal general manager mistake, which leads me to believe even more that most of this is just pure speculation. Do I think Pettersson is going to move at the trade deadline? Absolutely not. I would be shocked. It would be surprising. I mean, who knows? Right? If the return is good enough, you get a good 1C in return. It's just like maybe an even swap, franchise for franchise 1C. I don't know. Maybe you consider that, but Pettersson he's got good chemistry with that team, got good chemistry with that first line. I'm not quite sure that is the appropriate solution. So I kind of just wanted to talk about this. I feel like people are just talking about this because it's a big name player, and it's almost painting this player in a negative light when in reality we don't really know many of the facts, and there's a lot of speculation, and fairly reputable news sources are reporting on this without any citations. So there's that. There's also several people on the YouTubes. No shame to anybody talking about this. But I kind of just want to clarify. I've done a little digging. I don't really understand what is going on in terms of the Pettersson trade deadline talk. Because he's an expiring contract, but he's a restricted free agent. So again, Canucks can sign him for another year. If he really wants to leave, you can either trade him at the trade deadline next year, or if you have a good season, you can trade his rights to a team for him to sign. You can have his agent talk to the team beforehand to make sure that team will give you a haul in return. There are so many more options than just trading him at the trade deadline and potentially losing hope at a Stanley Cup championship. So I just want to throw that out there. Again, if you have any legitimate sources, let me know. Drop those in the comments. But what is going on? Why are we talking about this? I don't really understand. A lot of the news people I follow are based out of the Vancouver market, so maybe they're seeing something I'm not. But I most certainly am not finding any of those sources nor citations in some of these articles or YouTube news things. So might as well talk about Pettersson as a player. He's talented. That was kind of my speculation, my trade speculation and talk is pretty much done. Pettersson is a talented franchise centerman, right? There are not many players in the league nearly as capable of producing offensively and defensively like Pettersson does. Pettersson, perennial 100-point player, potentially. Right? He did it last year. He'll probably hit that this year, or he'll be close. I think his projected stats are like 97 points or something. So we'll see. Right? But it just looks natural. It doesn't look like he's giving it his all every game. I mean, it does, but he's consistent, right? He's consistent in his scoring. He's consistent in his play. And, just like any player, he has good games, he has bad games, but in general, he's pretty consistent. In terms of his defense, now, he is very good defensively. I would place him as well above average, but not elite. I think there are better forwards in the league that play... Not better forwards. I think there are forwards in the league that play much better defense than Pettersson. A lot of his focus is on the offense. I don't even think Pettersson is the best forward on his team. I'd actually give that to Teddy Bluger. I think his defense this year has been outstanding. And there have been a few guys on that forward group in Vancouver that have been playing some solid defense. And I think that's really a reason why they've changed the tides up in Vancouver. But, yeah, Pettersson, I don't even know if I'd have him in my top 10 for defensive forwards. Right? You think of guys like Barkov and Mark Stone and Joel Eriksson Ek up in Minnesota. And you even got to give some credit to Charlie Coyle in Boston. I don't know if I don't know if Charlie Coyle is necessarily better than Petterson on the defensive aspect. Maybe this year. In general, I'd say no. I'd say Pettersson's been the better defensive player. But this year, Charlie Coyle might be the better defensive player. Right? But there's a lot of competition for that spot. I don't know. I don't have him as an elite status. For me, that knocks his total extension cost down just a bit. I think you're looking at somewhere around 11.5, 12 million. I think anything over that is a little unnecessary. Again, one season at or above a point per game, and that was the one season he had 100 points. Should do that this season as well. He has 29 goals this year. He had 39 last year. Unless he scores 10 goals in 21 games, I don't think he'll hit that close to 40 goal mark. He'll be more of an assist guy, which is fine. He's a fantastic playmaker. Again, superstar player, but I think you're looking at something similar to like maybe a Pastrnak deal, maybe a little, because he's not necessarily the player's Pastrnak, but the cap's gone up a little bit, right? So you're looking at cap percentages. So I think you're looking at 11.5 to maybe 12.5 on the higher end. If it's an 8-year deal, 12.5, 12.75, right? But I think 13 and up, I think is really starting to push the envelope in terms of how much the player is worth, right? And let's be honest. There's going to be arbitration. There's arbitration rights for the player. So, God forbid they don't come to some type of an agreement that can go to arbitration. It really depends on what Pettersson wants, and if he's not willing to negotiate during the year, then, well, it is what it is, because that's entirely his right to not negotiate throughout the year. He can't just up and leave at the end of the year. So, I don't know, man. Again, I don't take the word franchise player lightly, and Pettersson is a franchise player at this point. It's just about how long he wants to sign that extension for, and if he wants to stay in Vancouver. And I don't really think there's a wrong choice. You get drafted into a league, you put on a team, and it may not be the spot you want to play in, right? Like for me, I wouldn't want to play in like a really southern state, because I don't really care for the heat. The heat in Maryland is a lot for me. I'm more of a winter guy. So up north, great. But if I'm like playing in let's just say like Tampa or Miami, right? It's not like you're hitting 105 degrees every day like you are in Arizona, but it's hot in the summer. It's humid. Winters, don't get super cold, right? That would not be my preferred style of play, and maybe Pettersson's our preferred city. Pettersson might be the same, but prefers warmer weather instead of colder weather. Or maybe Vancouver's pretty mild. So, like, who knows, right? Every person has their preferences, and it's not necessarily about the team, the market, the fan base. Sometimes it's just about personal preference and, where you want to live to be happy, right? So, no hate with that. No one's going to agree on what the best city to live in is. So, all the power to them. I kind of just want to make this video because it's like every day for like the past week, I've just seen some weird video about, Pettersson might be traded. And in reality, it's like, probably not. Where are you getting this information? I can't find anything. Like, let's talk about this. Why would he not be traded? So, if he gets traded, that would be exciting. That would be exciting, from a YouTube aspect. I can make, some videos on that. I'm rooting for it, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's the right decision, and I don't think it'll happen. So I just want to clarify that. That's all I got. This is kind of a spontaneous video. All right. Appreciate you guys watching. Let me know if you've got questions. Again, you have sources or whatever, or citations as to where these reports are coming from. Let me know. I've done quite a bit of research. I couldn't find too much concrete info. I found some stuff from Michael Russo over the past summer, but not a whole lot about the trade deadline that was anything more than speculation. So I appreciate you guys. Take care, all right?